Welcome to episode 122 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast about people in Canadian theatre featuring conversations with actors, directors, playwrights, and more. If you like the podcast, I hope you'll leave a comment or rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Music, or wherever you find your podcasts. Your ratings and comments help new people find this show, or even better, if you know someone you think will like the show, tell them about it. Some of my favorite podcasts became my favorites because someone I knew told me about them. If you want to tell me about someone you introduced to the show or the person who introduced you, or just want to drop me a line with your questions or comments, I would love to hear from you. You can find Stageworthy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website at stageworthypodcast.com. If you want to drop me a line, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Phil Rickaby, and my website is philrickaby.com. The Fringe season is almost upon us, and social media is a great way to find and target your audience for your upcoming Fringe show. But you're in rehearsal, or you don't know what a boosted post is or how to make an ad. Heck, you don't even know what web optimization means. And you know what? That's okay. Let Adriana Prosser do that for you with her Fringe social media packages. Now, I've worked with Adriana before, and I can tell you that she knows her stuff, and her social media marketing campaigns translate into bums in seats. And after all the work you put into the show, that's what you really want. Adriana can help you do that. Find her on Twitter at AdrianaP or on her website, adriana-prosser.com. This week, we're talking about Spur-of-The-Moment Shakespeare's Shakesbeers Showdown, happening April 27th at the 918 Bathurst Centre for Culture, Arts, Media, and Education. My guests are organizer Victoria Urquhart and representing some of the competitors, Jeff Dingle from Shakey-Shake and Friends, Eli Ham from Spur-of-The-Moment, and judge and dramaturg for Shakespeare's, Noam Lior. So here we are, some Shakespeare's competitors, a judge. Why don't we start here to my left, and we'll introduce. Why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll make sure that everybody knows everybody's voice.
Okay, I'm Jeff Dingle, and I'm representing Shakey-Shake and Friends, this year's Shakespeers. Yep.
I'm Victoria Urquhart. I am a very congested creator of the Shakespeare's Showdown, and occasionally your host for Shakespeare's.
I'm Eli Ham. I have no idea what I'm doing here. No, I'm competing on behalf of Spur-of-The-Moment Shakespeare's Collective in Shakespeare's Showdown.
I'm Noam Lior. I'm the judge and dramaturge, so my job is not only to create diabolically difficult challenges, but also to evaluate and, let's face it, mock our contestants when they fail.
Are you taking payments now, or when should we start?
I want my briberies in the form of single malt scotch. I like the space hides. So.
I have to ask. I mean, if you're drinking during, how does that impair your judgment as the judge?
I feel that it makes me more judgmental and quick to ire.
Okay,
that's good. That's good. I mean, some drinks do make a man mean. Before we get into what Shakespeare's is and all of that, I'd love to know about what your relationship with Shakespeare is. And Tori, you and I have talked a few times about your relationship with Shakespeare. But Shakespeare, I'm going to very carefully enunciate this time because Shakespeare is now a specific thing. But what is your when did you first start working on Shakespeare? When did you fall in love with Shakespeare? Anyone who wants to start.
I have a pretty long love affair. I grew up sort of on a hippie commune, organic garlic farm, outside of Stratford, Ontario. No,
that's this. Okay,
yeah. So I grew up just outside of Stratford, Ontario, and in Stratford, Ontario, so I was around the Bard a lot growing up. And when I was maybe 8 or 9, we used to watch Brandis Henry V about 3 times an evening every Friday, my friends and I, and just mostly the battle scene.
Okay.
But we decided we would write our own 7-minute version of Hamlet, which was 5 minutes of exposition. 2 minutes of exposition and 5 minutes of sword fighting. And
So the good parts.
Yeah, and we took that and we went down with my dad's guitar case to the Stratford Festival outside of the stage, and as a group of about 6, 7, 8, 9, and I guess we were 7 to 10 was our ages. We would perform this 7-minute Hamlet on a loop for people in sort of theater busk, and they would toss their coins into the hat. And so that was my first experience, really loving performing it. And then I was lucky enough to see enough performances where I just fell in love with it. When I was 12, they were doing... Stephen Wilmette was in... Waiting for Godot, which was amazing, not Shakespeare, but he was also in Richard III. And I went to a performance I saw, I think it was my 6th time, and I was sitting in the back, and there were 2 women sitting in the front, and the lights were coming up for the second act, and he lumbered on stage, and they were opening the candies. It was the classic, the classic crinkly candies. And you see him turn, and because the Tom Patterson is such an intimate venue, the entire audience is now looking at these 2 60, 70-year-old women who are opening their candies, and one of them notices and starts to whack the other one. They go, put it away, Ethel, put it away. Her name wasn't Ethel, but for editorial purposes. And he starts just sauntering over to these women. And so the one woman is getting more and more terrified as he's walking over, and the other woman is still searching in her purse for Mentos. And he's leaning over them. And to my nerdy 12 or 13-year-old brain, I don't think he changed a single line of his monologue. I think he just kept talking and looking at us and referring to them. And, Richard III can be a pretty malevolent gentleman. So by the time he got there, he was just spitting these words in this woman's face. And she looked up from her purse and burst into tears and left the theater. Oh! And this sounds terrible. But I was the kid sitting at the back of that theater going, I want to do that. Yeah. So,
How old? I'm very curious. The one part of that story that there's a few things I'm curious about. But how old were you when you were watching Henry V?
we started watching it on the regular when I was about 8, I think, 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm starting my daughter early. She's 4. She's got her complete works.
Sure, we were talking about how she's, she would be giving us notes if she was here.
She would be, yes.
Does she want to join?
I don't know. If I can convince my wife. I don't think it would be inappropriate.
She can be our honorary judge.
I think she'll be 18 years from now. Shakespeare's is still going.
That's right. She will beat you all.
Should be the impossible
Yeah.
to be contender or judge.
Jeff.
Let's see. My first introduction to Shakespeare probably began. That I remember probably was Disney's Gargoyles.
Yeah.
Because Macbeth was a character. Macbeth was a character, and he was like a gargoyle hunter or something, and his backstory was loosely Shakespeare's Macbeth with Disney/gargoyle modifications.
This is amazing.
So,
I did not even know that.
Show was amazing.
It's been decades since I've seen it, but it was that show is actually full of like Shakespeare references.
It also featured predominantly actors from Star Trek.
Yeah,
Oh, yes,
Riker was the villain. Riker was Xanatos. And Deanna Troi. Deanna Troi was the other bad guy. She was the evil Desdemona, the evil gargoyle. I actually think Puck and Oberon show up later.
Yeah.
I think there's one episode where it's like a Midsummer Night's Dream themed, and like Puck and Titania and however you pronounce it, and Oberon show up. But I remember watching Disney's Gargoyles, and I remember my brother and his friends, when they were in high school, they made like Macbeth and Julius Caesar like movies for their class projects in Shakespeare. And I remember being in middle school and like getting into acting and being like, I want to be in your movies. And like stealing like my brother's like copy of Macbeth and be like, I know this shit, I watch Gargoyles. and then so when I got to high school, I'd already like knew half the stories that we studied in the curriculum. But I don't think I actually performed Shakespeare until late, like in my college years. Because I know in high school, I come from a small town, New Brunswick, and we mainly just did musicals. There was like the High School Musical, and we did like the Music Man and stuff like that. And then in university, we studied a lot of like modern drama, which was great. But I think when our university did Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, that was the first time I actually like spoke Shakespeare in a live play.
Wow.
I played Rosencrantz, and it's like 95% Tom Stoppard and like 5% Shakespeare, but where there's still some lines in there. But I think it was after I graduated. I was in a summer production of Midsummer, and that was like the first like Shakespeare play I had done.
When you made the tradition from gargoyles to high school, was there an adjustment or?
Oh yeah, I definitely read Macbeth for the first time. I was like, this didn't happen in gargoyles. Macbeth doesn't hunt any gargoyles in this. This is bullshit.
No.
So I had a great high school teacher in grade 11, and we did Hamlet. So that was my introduction. But my gateway drug was Neil Gaiman's Sandman. And so comics got me into Shakespeare. And that last issue, which is The Tempest, I just happened to hit it when I was we were moving. I was staying at my grandmother's place. She had the set of those blue cloth-bound Yale editions that apparently my great-grandfather had bought, and they lived on a shelf in the basement accruing dust. And I was like, I should read The Tempest. I don't have much better to do. And I did, and I was like, okay, this is pretty great. And it's like, and then I was kind of, I was overcompensating, is what it was, which I don't do anymore. I was in college. I was starting theater school. I had friends who were in university. So they were doing, Machiavelli and Hobbes, and I was like, I don't know, doing the, learning to dangle my sacrum or whatever we were doing that day. And I felt like I needed to kind of get my intellectual cred up. So I read my way through that complete works. And, I found by the fourth or fifth time you have to look up the same thing, you go like, oh, that's that thing that was in that other place. I'm like, my God, this guy reuses his tropes. Right? Oh, it's the makeup thing again. Okay, I've got this. And it was a shock to me when I got to university and discovered that you didn't read whole things, right? That like people read a chapter or something. I was like, I read, the discourses, like Machiavelli's The Discourses. And I got there and they were like, oh, well, we're going to look at these 20 pages. And I was like, what?
Enough.
But then, when I was doing, like, I loved the Shakespeare work in theater school, and I did an independent study. I was as a stage manager on a production of Cymbeline that Kate Lynch was directing, and because as Tori has learned, I can't keep my damn mouth shut. I was doing things that like you should never do as a stage manager, but I was sitting there going like, I have an idea about that line, and like I don't think you're quite getting that thought, and like. One of the reasons I will love Kate Lynch to this day and beyond is she at some point went like, hang on, I should be listening to this. Like, do you have any ideas? Give me more. And she hired me for stuff after that. But like, and that was my first dramaturgy gig. And I was like, oh, you can kind of get a job, not a paying job, but like there's room to be like the Shakespeare talking guy on productions. And then, this Shakespeare play app thing landed in my lap. I was not the person who came up with the idea, but they brought me in as a Shakespeare talking. We're like, we want to make a Shakespeare app for high school students and film productions and include them. And we need a Shakespeare talking guy. And I came in and did that. And Phil, you came in and did some stuff for us on Macbeth.
Yeah.
And now I'm yelling at people while they drink.
Hey,
I'm just
What is
imagining like Kate Lynch going to you being like, "No, stop that, no. But then tell me all of that stuff later.
There's
Come to my office later and then tell me all the things and I'll bring that out later. But stop it."
yeah, I mean, I learned a lot on that. Like, she was amazing. Like, I mean, I know that was a joke, but also, like, like one of the things I learned from her that served me as a director was I would say something and she'd go like, "That is a good point. That actor isn't ready to hear that yet." Right? So, like, we can talk about that, but they need to get a foundation before they can even integrate that note. And I was like, "Oh, that's a thing. Absolutely."
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm curious, where does Shakespeare's come from? Where did the combination of the First Folio and alcohol first come together?
Whoa.
I mean, for you, not. I'm sure the people have been different by the First
Probably
Folio.
drunk when he wrote part of it.
That's a great question. I mean, you didn't ask me what my relationship was to Shakespeare.
I thought that we'd covered this at least twice before.
We did.
But, I mean, we can certainly go over it.
Cole's Notes. I read
Yeah, I like the
Lamb's
Cole's
Shakespeare. My mom was an English teacher. She's no longer an English teacher. She's gone down a different path, but for a long time she was an English teacher, and she used to always quote Hamlet at me, and I didn't know it was Hamlet until I got into high school, and I read Lamb's Shakespeare when I was 10, and that was something that was a retelling of Shakespeare that I believe a dude did for his sister, because she was dealing with some mental health concerns, and he wanted to contextualize it for her and soften some of the images and whatnot, so that it was easier for her to read without triggering. And having said that, it's been so many years since I've read that, and I could be totally off the mark, but this is what I remember from it.
I think that's pretty close. Dorothy Parker actually wrote a play about them called On the Coast of Illyria, or possibly just The Coast of Illyria.
Okay.
They were also, like, friends with Coleridge, and he shows up in the play, like, all loaded up on laudanum and trying to write.
That sounds like a Dorothy Parker play, yeah.
Okay. And then I got into high school, and they were saying, they were talking about these quotes, and I knew them so much because my mom had sent them to me, so I was like, oh, I fucking know this. This is easy. And then I just kind of read with that kind of swagger for the first couple of years, and then I got to theater school, and they were like, nope. You don't know anything about this. Here we go. Here's a lesson. But that's essentially my...
What was your reaction to finding out that these things that your mother said to you had come from this play?
Oh, God. There were many reactions. Some of which were, oh, you mean my mom's not just saying some old moral, she's not just saying some tale as old as time lesson, although it kind of really is a tale as old as time lesson. Like, oh, you're just said by some old dude? Yeah, screw that. Yeah. As well as, I don't know, I was a keener in school, so there was a bit of a, okay, I got you all beat now. This is great. Like, I'm gonna coast right through English. That actually never happened. I did not coast. But, by the time I graduated, I got a decent handle on it. Yeah.
So what surprised you when you got to the theater school and they were like, nope? What was the thing that they were noping you for?
Oh, so many things. So many things to nope me for. A large thing that I've struggled with is getting the sense of the sentence. It's funny because when I was in high school, I got the sense of it so easy because all I had to do was look at the punctuation and go, "Oh, the sentence doesn't end there. Just because the line ends there doesn't mean the sentence has to."
Sure.
And I'd read it, and teachers would be like, "Oh yeah, you're speaking it very well. Congratulations." And then when I got into theater school, I couldn't really fake that anymore. But yeah, especially for me. Even now, I struggle with finding the sense in the language, just because of my ADD.
Sure.
Putting all of the images together, I have to do all this crazy stuff just to get the sense of the argument in my body. Once that's there, then I can build a character on top of that. The character's kind of really already there in the text, anyways. But that's.
I got caught a little bit with that in theater school as well, because I always had really good diction as a kid. Like, I was one of those kids who spoke really clearly right away. And so once I got onto Shakespeare, and then once we got to college and the advent of the internet or like even going to the library, and there were so many recordings of RSC Shakespeares that if I ever didn't know how to say something, I would just look it up and I would copy John Gielgud or you know what I mean? Like, I would just copy literally do all the line readings from that, until in second year at theater school, Joe Ziegler actually went, "Yeah, I heard that one too." Like, he just called me out for going "That's Gielgud's Tempest. Cut it out and come up with your own shit."
Yep.
That's
absolutely.
But somebody to have that depth of a knowledge to go No, I've heard that before, and I know where I've heard it, so...
And they tell you, don't listen, don't go and watch the play if you're if you are prepping a role, don't go and see another person's take on it. And it's very smart. What I do now, just to make sure that I am getting the sense of it, is sometimes I will go and listen to it, but I will listen to it in very specific points. Because for me, that's the same as going to No Fear Shakespeare on Spark Notes. Going and getting, for those who are listening in, this gentleman just picked
I brought
up.
Notes. I brought a No Fear Shakespeare.
I totally read No Fear Shakespeare. Totally. At least check it out.
Sometimes it gives the context and the modern colloquialisms that help fill in the sense. Sometimes listening to specific parts will do that for me, but you tread at your own risk, because if you go and listen to the whole thing, you're screwing yourself.
And same thing here, I think, as an adult. It is editorialized somewhat. Like, this is somebody's interpretation of the text. I wouldn't call it gospel.
It's a good starting point, though, if you're struggling.
It's a wonderful teaching tool. It's a wonderful tool, especially when you're engaging with
There are total times, too, as much as we want to be I've done Shakespeare before, I know what all this stuff means. There are times where it's I have no idea what that means. I just Google No Fear Shakespeare, and it's just what did this guy say?
Oh, slow-winged turtle, shall a buzzard take thee? What the
we've all...
exactly.
Well, see, turtle is a turtle dove.
No.
It's always a turtle dove.
I care not for your turtle doves, sir.
But they're very pretty.
8 lines without a period. It's what is the thought here?
Yeah. And also, for me, one of the weird joys in my life as someone who has done, editorial notes for digital editions, but still, and in the perpetual last stages of a dissertation on Shakespeare and digital editing and all that stuff. It's finding the thing where I get the basic sense, but I don't quite get it. And then looking it up in 4 different sources, and they're all saying okay, so actually nobody's sure. It is weirdly satisfying to know that there's some stuff that we just don't know, and we're all kind of winging it, and we have been for 400 years.
And isn't that sort of the beauty of it? Isn't that sort of why we still love to do it?
Yeah.
Because you still run into those little things where you're oh yeah, nobody is. Like we're all just like throwing pickles at a window.
Oh, sure.
Whatever. I don't know. Sorry.
That's a very, very
That's
strangely specific.
It's a Wayne's World reference. When they
Okay.
you know, like whichever pickle gets to the bottom, that's whose idea we use.
Oh, like pickle slices.
Yeah. From the burgers, they
I'm
try to
thinking
make
you're just throwing whole pickles out of windows.
One
One masterpiece to another. Shakespeare.
Sorry.
Wayne's World.
The art of simile.
Oh yes, it's all Shakespeare. Strange Brew, for example. That's
Yes.
yeah. But now, speaking of strange brew, now we can get back to the beer.
Nice segue.
Thank you. How did the First Folio and beer first come together for you?
All right. Well, I mean, Shakesbeers, the term Shakesbeers, has actually been in existence well before we started this. Gasp, I know. And there have been versions that have been in the States, and I think it ended up going Canada side back in 2009, 2010. I was hanging out with Kayla Bratton, and Kayla had mentioned that there was this way that we could do a really cool competition reading and make a fundraiser out of it, and it would be a really fun game. And what happens when we just hang out and drink and read Shakespeare? And from there, I started to kind of put in a game structure, and how would this look if, and how would we eliminate people? That was the big question for me for a long time.
With poison. No, I mean...
Poison, yes.
Well,
Shakespeare.
But also, I mean, there are a lot of people out there who read... This was my assumption at the start. Is, everybody can read the First Folio. How do we really make it difficult for them? So then I started getting things like, okay, and then they have to switch characters, so then they'll switch hats, and we'll do it like this, and then some people have to share a character. Okay, this is good. And then we got to the first showing in 2013. And I was so wrong. Like, there's a lot of people who read and speak Shakespeare very well. There are a lot of people who cold read Shakespeare okay, but perform really well. And there are a ton of people who cannot read the First Folio, but who do Shakespeare really well.
sure.
Thank God.
Well, I mean, a lot of people have not picked up the First Folio, if they did at all, in theater school.
Yeah.
And other people have a copy of the First Folio in modern type on their shelf and have forgotten that the V's are U's and the U's are V's sometimes, and the S sometimes looks like an F. Mm-hmm. And
sometimes Shakespeare puts in an emoticon.
Yes. The question marks are sometimes exclamation points and things like that.
And colons and...
Well, they ran out of type. I mean, literally, like they've only got so much of each thing, and they're setting big pages, and sometimes they're just like anything with a dot in it, just throw that in.
Yep. It's those semicolons that I hate.
So how?
Semicolon for?
Well, I mean,
Just put a comma in there.
don't seem they don't seem to have a meaning until they do.
Sorry.
How does somebody get eliminated? I understand that if somebody fucks up, that they have to drink.
Well, at the end of the round, whoever has drank the most is eliminated. We used to measure the cans by how much was left in each.
I feel like I have a bigger mouth than Mel. So like I'm going to take more beer in one gulp.
Well,
I
here's
feel like
the
I'm
other
at a
thing.
distinct disadvantage now.
Here's the other thing. Shakey-Shake in particular has been known to take larger swigs than the other teams. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
That's because their other teams was like, oh, I got buzzed.
Light sip.
But soft, while like, bam, oh. and then they win. And it's like, that's because you only consumed like a gulp of alcohol.
And it's never occurred to Shakey-Shake to maybe reduce the amount that they take in one go?
No, we're hardcore.
And each Shakey-Shake participant is drinking for two.
That's
Yes.
right, yeah.
This is the thing.
That's
They're drinking, reading, and carrying a puppet at the same time.
Yeah.
Like automatically, they get style points just for rocking the
I feel like
Casbah.
sometimes it's the puppet carrying the performer, but whatever.
Pretty well. No one wants me there. No one actually wants me there. No one goes, oh, Jeff Dingle or Tom McGee. They're like, bring the purple puppet out.
What?
That was funny when it swore.
So, I mean, so that's how people get eliminated, whoever has drunk the most.
Yes.
I mean, yes, go ahead.
Well,
please.
we changed, or at least like
We did.
last year, it was whoever made the most mistakes. So no matter how much they were drinking in each time they
That way, it's not based on what's
befouled
left in the,
the
can.
text.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. I was reaching for hyperbole. May have hit smut. I'm not sure.
Is that what it is this year? Whoever makes the most mistakes rather than who drinks the most?
Well,
or?
this year, and it's been growing over the years that we've been also establishing style and style points so that it's not just about being word perfect, but it's also about being able to read with flair and being able to give a little of what Shakespeare would call chutzpah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm stuck on the Yiddish Shakespeare.
Oh no, some of those sonnets are clearly different, right? No longer mourn for me when I am dead. You shall hear the surly sullen bell. It's there's a lot of old Jewish mother in Shakespeare.
Especially the rape of Lucrece.
Yeah.
And there's the line.
You know, that's the kind of thing you get away with when it's a puppet saying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I say it, it's offensive. When the puppet says it, it's endearing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if there's something that the competitors are most concerned about as far as Shakesbeers goes. Is there something that you like that is your weakness? I mean, I'll make the other guy cover his ears if you're worried about that. But like, is there a thing that you're worried about?
That I'm worried about.
Like, is there a play that scares you?
Probably. I know the one year I lucked out because I knew the piece. It was from like. It wasn't something I performed. It was definitely like I got to read something that was from something I had done or knew really well. So like, it's usually when it's like, if I can tell you right now, if someone threw something from Timon of Athens at me, I'd probably be screwed.
Oh my god, some of the names in that play. Some of the names in that play. I mean, I saw it at Stratford last year, and at the end of the play, I'm going like, wait a minute. I still can't pronounce that name when I look at it. I mean, 35 times.
Yeah, let alone what they said.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, not really. Oh, the other thing is, and I don't think it's happened to me, but I think it's happened to other people that they get thrown something that's not Shakespeare.
That can happen?
Yeah, every now and then someone gets thrown like a Thomas Middleton or Ben Jonson piece, and they're like, I practiced reading the folio for 5 hours last night.
Every year, at least once, James Wallace goes to me and he was like, what was that?
She's made in Cheapside.
Is this Coriolanus or the Alchemist? What's happening? I don't understand. They said it was Shakespeare's.
I'm admittedly, I brought this up at the other meeting. Having made the transition to fatherhood, I'm severely out of practice when it comes to drinking beer. For one, I also have never tended to have the largest bladder. So, I'm a bit worried about starting to rush to get off stage so that I can go pee. and then making a mistake because of that.
Your weakness is noted.
The solution has already been given to you.
Take small sip. Oh, I'm definitely going to be that. No, I don't think that my team leader will allow me to do that. But
Oh no, Mel.
Are just conveniently out of order tonight. I'm sorry. You'll have to hold it in.
Yeah, Mel is going to actually be giving me my sips. I won't be
is.
taking them myself. I'll just however long Mel tips my cup for.
Oh, geez.
We used to have a tag team rule, and I wanted someone to use it so bad, and nobody did. Where it was the equivalent of give them the chair. Basically, you tap out if you're down to like the bottom of your beer, and you know you're running low. You tap out, and you have your other teammate come in and read the rest for you. And then,
That's nice.
But then the caveat of that is they still have to go in and do their round with that handicap.
Right.
I wanted people to use it so bad, but it never got used, so we ended up scrapping it.
Maybe the threat of the handicap is too much for people.
I think so. I mean, over the years, it's been taken very, very seriously because we're very serious Shakespeare readers. But I think especially this year, it's just we're just here to laugh at ourselves and have fun.
Do you get flair points for correcting your competitor?
Everyone loves that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I grew up in a household where it was like everything was cutthroat, right? So when we played cribbage, if I didn't count all my points, my dad stole them. So I would lose by large amounts until I figured out how to count my own points. And so we're pretty cutthroat that way. It's a terrible thing to give another actor.
I'm just thinking when people are drinking, that's probably a good way to start a fight.
Yeah.
I mean, which is probably not what we want here. It's all good fun. I ran into somebody yesterday who was like, "Oh yeah, I just found out I'm doing the Shakespeare's thing because they said that I'm the drinker in the group." I know.
Awesome.
I was like,
Which actor was that?
Exact opposite.
Lindsay.
Lindsay Middleton?
Yeah, Lindsay Middleton was like, they told me that I have to do it because I'm the drinker. I'm like, but how's your Shakespeare?
We're coming for you, Lindsay.
Style point.
Noam, what is so you're putting together these traps for the teams, these little nuggets for them. What's your approach? Like, how do you choose evil? Good.
No, I mean, I think like try to find stuff that's in terms of finding the material. Try to find stuff that's a bit off the beaten path. Which sometimes means the less performed plays, and sometimes it's like the scene that always gets cut but has great stuff in it. I mean, some of it is also like it's looking at what we've got in facsimile, and so like because we want to give them something that's going to be challenging and hopefully like sets them up in particular ways, right? And anything that's got the word "suck" in it with the long S,
yes, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's just like, how can I resist? But also, like, you get, if the facsimile is like ink stained and has bleed through, and you're like, all right, that's just not going to be like it. If they're going to just freak out looking at the page, that's not super fun.
Panic attack. How do I read this?
Yeah.
What are you doing to me?
Yeah. But I mean, I think there, and we've also like been. This is where the style points come in, and we've been sort of trying to find structural stuff to like build a game on top of just the very simple structure of like elimination style first folio reading, because that's too simple. But I think I'm like intermingling answers, but like some sort of complicated layered structure. To add complications on top of that, so that there's more than just the reading. But I think also, like, to go back to what we were just saying, right? Like, people, I mean, it's fun and we don't take it seriously until you're sitting at that table in front of an audience, and there's a text that's difficult to read, and I mean, I haven't been an actor for a long time, but like when I was a competitor for 1 year before they made me the judge. I'm not sure how to describe that trajectory, right? But what I saw and what I've sort of seen in, or I don't know, projected my experience onto other people, right, is like when you're there, you don't have the kind of safety structure of being an actor, right? Where it's like, this is pretend and I'm playing a part. Suddenly it's just me and there's no armor. And if I fuck up, then it is really personal. And so a lot of what we've been trying to build is to find ways to allow players to create personas for themselves so that it's not like, oh, it's Noam and he's getting it wrong and like feel self-conscious about that. And I think there's some people who are like, you know, after 2 or 3 mistakes or an appropriate amount of beer are like, this is awesome. I'm just screwing up and it's great. But I think also like there's what we want to try to sort of, the structure of just the drinking game kind of incentivizes boring performance, right? Like a Shakespeare actor who knows the rules, right, will get you a by the rules performance. Nobody really wants that. So we want to kind of find something where like we still get to punish people for getting it wrong because that's my joy in life. But also like set them up so that they're having fun with the material and playing the crowd and like getting some good performances out of it.
Hugh last year had a cheering crowd of people going, Gilbert Godfrey. And then there was Larry from Shakespeare in the Ruff back in 2015 where I screwed up his last name. His last name was Smith. Like, how do you screw up that name? But I read it and I was like, I'm so sorry, I can't read my own writing on here. And he just goes to me and he's like, it's Smith.
Were you pronouncing it as Smith?
Maybe. But then from then on in, well, I let the audience know because I had said over the mic in my ridiculousness, I was like, Larry, I'm so sorry I can't say your name because I can't read my own writing. And then he goes up to me and he tells me, and he's on deck.
Oh yeah.
And then when we get to the next round where he is on, I go, hey guys, you know what this was? This was Smith. And so Larry then goes, okay, I'm any word that I don't know in here, I'm just going to say Smith. And so he'd read, and then he'd read to the end where the page kind of curved and he couldn't read the word anymore, and he'd go, Smith, Smith, and I think the judges only gave him like 3 penalty drinks for that because it was hilarious and he was just really brilliant at it. And there were people, the crowd was cheering, Smith, 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 Smith. I have never seen a crowd go crazy over the most ridiculous things in my life. It's amazing. And like, why not? It's so much fun.
Is there just one judge or is there a group of judges?
There is a group this year.
Okay.
There was a group, there were 2 judges last year. In the interest of ensuring that we are having equal representation for genders and all identities, we are ensuring that there is a group of judges this year. Because I mean, we've asked for that representation on our teams, so we should be doing that for our judges.
Sure. How is the determination? Like, is it 1 mistake equals 1 drink, or is it? Are there penalty drinks for big mistakes? Are there?
How much of this do we want to say?
How much am I allowed to say?
I mean, for all we know, these guys, you could be lying. You could match that stuff up. I'm just curious.
I'll definitely also forget.
I won't remember.
How ominous can we make this right now? Yeah, it goes
one of the
promise.
drinks is poison. But which one?
One of the drinks is a shot of whiskey. No.
I'll take that one.
I got an idea for that.
So the traditional formula has been one mistake, one drink. And again, because we're always refining, we've added, we're tinkering this year. And so one of the things that we've added in order to like gamify the game so that we get more game in our game, so you can game while you game. We're adding a what are provisionally being called chance cards or possibly fortune cards, so that style points, and we're still working out the math here. Style points can be redeemed for fortune cards.
I guess this was in your information packages, so this is okay.
Which might
Just the chance card, not the fortune card.
Well, I was thinking fortune was a more Shakespearean early modern term than chance. I mean, or hazard possibly.
Well, because I understand they can go both ways.
Yes. Yes. So, for example, you might get a card that says, right, for the rest of this round, every time you screw up, you take 2 drinks. Or one that I'm not going to say. I want to share all the things, but no.
Don't spoil too much.
So, Eli, you have a bit of a challenge in that the competitor that's across from you is, this is Jeff, but there's also going to be a puppet. So, like, what's your plan for the puppet?
I might bring my daughter.
Okay.
I might just bring my daughter on stage, and if they won't accept her as a judge, then I really think that's age diversity. I think you're getting a lot of. She's a woman, and
judges get free drinks.
Yeah, exactly. And she would pound that chocolate milk. Like how am I going to deal with the puppet? I feel like you said, like, with the puppet, there are certain things that puppets can say that people can't say. So there are also certain things you can do to a puppet that you can't do to a human.
They're way more flammable.
Yeah. So I saw, I said, I wanted to create some tension, and I think that's
that took a darker turn than I thought it was going to take.
Yeah, well, if it's a competition, I was just told that we are trying to win. So. If puppets can say things that humans can't, then humans can do things to puppets they can't do to humans, I guess.
Well, Jim Henson did he did many things to puppets that you can't really do to people, but...
Yeah.
Jeff.
It's on.
Marlo it takes a lot of charm. I notice a lot of people pay attention to the puppet's mouth and not my mouth. And Shakespeare's coming out of my mouth. And so sometimes I can mask my mistakes.
See, I feel like it would be doubly hard, though, because if you mess up the mouth moving up and down, I feel like that's...
Oh, it's super hard. It's way harder. It's not at all a thing that helps me in my opinion. Tom and I, as people who've competed before, and with the puppet, it's so much, it would be so much easier if I didn't have the puppet on my hand. But every year... Once again, no one wants to see me. No one wants to see the puppet team with other puppets. So we got to bring the puppets.
But do you guys try to do you try to really match the puppet mouth with the words, or do you eventually end up just being approximating?
Totally. It depends on how drunk he is.
As the night progresses, and whether it's the actual round or the fool's round. We started to take liberties with. I recall last year in the Fool's Round, totally abandoning the puppet. I think I gave it to Jordan Hill, because he was playing 2 characters, and the Fool's Round ended up being probably about 25 minutes longer than it should have been. Long story short,
fair, the Fool's Round was entirely in Klingon.
It was entirely in Klingon.
Cold reading.
Yeah. So that was fun. But no, it's actually really, really hard to be drinking and puppeting and doing Shakespeare at once, especially with the other puppets. Their hands are on little sticks, so in the past, I know last year was Tom and I, and he had no problems just using his real hand to flip the page. Marlo's hand is covered, it's my hand, covered in purple felt, so there's just times of just trying to grasp the page, and already I'm getting docked points for just not talking yet. I don't know if that's a rule this year or not. Yeah, Marlowe does not help. But it's a lot of fun. And that's why we're there. Yeah.
Is there a team that scares you? Is there a team that intimidates you?
Last year there were a couple people in the People's team that were like that sort of walked that fine line of I thought of like reading Shakespeare really well and having like a great personality. And it's like, oh crap, that guy's like really good. Good for them. And he totally got voted out, so I didn't give a shit about him for the rest of the night.
What's the People's
I felt
team?
fear for a moment.
So the People's team is basically competitors who do not have a company. And applications for that are open until April 10th. And this is releasing on the 10th,
I think so, yeah.
So if you're hearing this now, you're too late. Competitors, if they want to enter without a team as one of the people in the audience, they can submit a form and a short video outlining their training montage and why they would be a good fit for Shakespeare's.
Oh, okay.
And then they compete alongside Shakespeare's veterans.
And by alongside, we mean against.
Yes. Heavily against.
Eli,
Yeah.
is there a team that you're nervous about, scared of?
I mean, my initial response when you asked that question, Jeff, was no, because I'm such a loser that I probably don't know anyone, and so I don't know any. I don't know any better. Like I won't know any better. It's sort of going to be ignorance. Is like whatever. I'm just gonna, But that's how I've always sort of treated this business. Anyways, I'm just gonna go and do my thing, and we'll see what happens. I'm gonna throw my pickle at the window, and if it gets to the bottom first, I'm gonna get the part. But I think, not to be cheesy or overstate the point, I don't know how you can't sort of have some kind of apprehension around the Stratford Festival team. In terms of, I don't mean that in terms of like, pedigree or whatever, but just in terms of like dollars and cents resources.
Oh, sure.
We're talking about these people for 8 months have had free access to text coaches and a library and archives and a bunch of other senior artists they get to watch night in and night out. So, in terms of their proximity or the recency, of their interaction with the Bard, I think that they're going to probably come in with some fresh brains at the very least. So, I'll be looking to intimidate them early.
Well, maybe they'll be intimidated by puppets.
That's true. That's true.
That's my plan.
Is there a team from the media this year?
Yes, there is.
So, here the media. If we don't know how versed the media team is in Shakespeare and how well they might perform it, but does that make you guys feel any more confident about your chances? Like maybe we won't be
last. That we won't be like the first people eliminated.
I don't know.
Don't know. I can see the media people being really good because if they're seasoned reviewers have probably seen everything.
Sure, but maybe they haven't spoken it.
That's true. That is different.
Seeing is different than speaking.
Yeah,
Especially when you're looking at a folio page.
It might be therapeutic to watch them fail. This is what you get for saying I shouted all my lines.
Zing.
By the way, Phil, you're in the media section.
I know. I'll be in the media section. I'll be cheering them on. Yes. So when they beat you, I will cheer for them.
Yeah, that's probably the more likely scenario.
I'm actually offering coaching to the media section for good reviews in the future.
Okay, wow.
Just putting that out there.
Okay,
I'm all about the bribes, as you can tell.
I can tell. That seems to be your plan is just bribe.
Except the thing is that I have no money and no assets, and so.
So it's not a really good plan.
It's a terrible plan.
Unless you're accepting them. You're accepting them.
Yeah, that's right.
Victoria, you talked about the diversity that you're trying to find. Is that more of a focus this year than in past years? Is that something that you made a concerted effort to put together?
Yeah, I remember. In I think it was in 2015, we made a more general call out for diversifying teams because, all in all, this text may have been written by an old white dude, but it doesn't have to be performed by one. And back in, I think, was it 2014 or 2015? But around that time, we had just done an all-female Julius Caesar. And moving on from that, I just learned that there was so much more that we could do. And I'm still learning that there's so much more that we can do. So this is just one step in that direction. And there have been many steps in the past, and there will be many more in the future. It is my goal to ensure that, once again, just because these words have been written by an old white dude doesn't, or a collection of old white dudes, however you choose to believe this text came into being, sure as hell doesn't have to be performed by old white dudes.
Yeah.
That being said, when this old white dude wrote this text, he wrote it for very specific people.
Sure.
And when we get to perform these texts, I think it is our duty to ensure that it is not, it is incorporating more identities than what was originally written, and not in stereotypical ways. Shakespeare just got real for me for a second.
There can be interesting things that happen by putting those words into a non-white male mouth. And, just because Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were written as men, they can be played as women. They can be played as some, and most roles can be played by another gender, or there's so much that you can do, and it often. Does it ever? I can't think of a situation where it really takes away from it. More usually, adds to the experience of watching the play.
Absolutely. Did everyone here see Diane Dacula play?
Oh, I didn't, but I wanted to.
It's still a parental connection, and it's a whole different story with the maternal thing, and not a whole different story, but it's it illuminates a different part of the text, and as a bit of a real hopeless romantic who wants to believe that one old white genius sat in his room and made this all up. I would like to believe that he would love the fact that people are diversifying his stories and bringing them to life in different and interesting ways and illuminating things that maybe he didn't even intend when he wrote it. But if you're creating exciting, I just got to think, as a writer, if someone's creating exciting things with something that I wrote, whether it's entirely what I wrote or whether it's inspired by that and using that as an anchor.
As a writer myself, the idea that in 400 years someone could still be working with or inspired by things that I wrote would be amazing.
Yeah.
And let's look at the 50,000 edits that are out there. The 50,000 edits that are out there for a reason. One version he took to a bar. Another version he took to the Globe. Right. Another version went to 50. How many different cuts of Hamlet are there? Yeah. Because the wording on some of those speeches is just out of this world. And there's the version that we all know and that is generally said. And then there are other versions that are out there.
Q1 is kind of amazing.
To be or not to be? Aye, that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had that one in last year. Yeah. Spoilers.
But it's also what amazes me is what people get caught up on. We all know it's not real. Right? We all know that nobody got murdered. And yet people are like, oh, well, there was an Asian person playing this character, and there wouldn't have been that person in that period, and that took me right out of it. And I'm like, the accents weren't a problem, the perfect teeth weren't a problem, the clothes weren't a problem. Like, why would this be an issue? Like, it's all we're all agreeing to pretend. Like, let's just make a bigger pool of people we can pretend with.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if BBC can take steps towards appropriate gender-conscious casting and whatnot, I'm not saying that it's perfect at all.
Yeah.
But, hey, we sure as hell can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, does everybody have a plan for leaving on the night? Do you have a plan for a cab? Who's pouring you into that cab? Is there a plan, or are you just going to wing it?
My daughter's going to be there, so she'll be okay. She'll wave one down.
Yeah.
She knows how to work Uber.
I'm sure that I could show her how to work that.
Here, honey. Now you agree to get the pickup. There you go.
I'll probably walk it off because I'll have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning.
There you go.
No, I have the next day off.
Just a general advertisement to any companies that would like to work in sponsorship with us. We are more than happy to arrange for some sort of promo code for you to sponsor this night. Last year we did an Uber. We might do an Uber again, but this time without a fridge.
Yes.
You brought a fridge,
we had a full fridge last year, and
Yeah.
we brought that in.
As you do, I guess.
Where are you doing Shakespeare's this year? What's the location?
918 Bathurst. At 918 Bathurst.
Yeah.
Oh, I can definitely walk home from there. That's excellent. Plan reaffirmed.
And Noam, do you have a plan for all the bribes that you seem to be soliciting for when people are buying you drinks?
My plan is to drink as much as I can and take home the rest. Sort of evaluate who brought what and what kind of advantage I can give them.
Sure.
Can you tell me again the region that you said was your favorite?
Speyside. Those are the lighter, sweeter ones, as opposed to the Islas, which are more peaty and smoky. That's what my wife likes, so that also works.
Do you want to one of each?
If you want to talk specific distilleries, we can get into that as well.
Write that down.
Last year, I was enlisted to bring a cooler, so for storage to help out with the bar. So I arrived on my bike with a cooler. What's the straps that stretch and have bungee cord? Yes. Which then meant that I biked home at the end of the night. I left the cooler because I had to pick that up later on, but the bike ride home was interesting.
It was pouring rain.
It wasn't pouring. By the time I left, it wasn't pouring, but it was
By the
definitely
time we left, it was pouring.
Victoria, have you ever been able to be a contestant in Shakespeare's?
One day. Dream. When the day comes that this task is taken off of my shoulders and it is able to function on its own, which is not far away, then I will compete on behalf of Spur-Of-The-Moment and make this happen. That day is not today.
Coming 2033. Victoria Urquhart.
Oh God, I hope not 2033.
I'm just the amount of that should sell some tickets as it is, for the first time.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. We do test nights in order to make this happen. So, I would not run this event if I had not tried it on my own. Mm-hmm. And had my ass handed to me on my own several times. That being said, it is something that I look forward to, absolutely,
Nice.
and will shit my pants in fear.
Justifiably so.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. I'm looking forward to that this year.
This has been a Homebody Productions production.